have a core belief that the countryside is quite a queer place in the sense that it can sometimes be really strange or surprising. It hides a lot of secret experiences inside of it. The exhibition project began because of your project, Rural Connections, and we found a common link between the stuff that I do for my PhD research and what you were looking to explore about kind of understudied or underheard rural experiences. What we wanted to do with the art exhibition was give voice to other rural creatives who are queer or making work in a kind of queer way or with queer themes. And by bringing them all together, we managed to build a picture of the countryside that is already queer in the sense of being strange or engaging with various social exclusions. And hopefully, all together, the 8 artists from the UK and Ireland that we've got on show is like they're creating a new kind of countryside.
It's been a really incredible project to be a part of. We've managed to uncover a lot of stories of people that are essentially been hidden in the past. We've worked with some really fantastic artists.
I think that the way in which you've aligned some of these pieces, you've got these very big sculptural pieces in the room, but then the video, which sometimes you sort of pick up on bits of it and come back to it, and then you understand what's going on. So there's these lovely sort of narratives working with each other in a very quite small space room, but actually there's a really sort of big dialogue going on between those pieces.
Whilst we might think of the countryside as one singular place, it can actually be thought of in many different ways and is full of difference in itself.
A lot of the work in this space speaks from the perspective of people who are queer as in their identity and their work as a kind of extension of that, but also people who use that actually physically within their work, and there's a really nice conversation that happens between them both.
There's quite a lot of people working in this area, but there's not much representation in terms of where it is in galleries.
The works are very connected in terms of them employing elements of the experience of the gypsy and the queer community. There are places which some people can and cannot be admitted to. And this obviously has resonance with queer identities as well in terms of access to space and to communities. The more vibrant object is about ideas of display and concealment. So how we can conceal aspects of our identity through overt display in order to distract the world.
This piece is called Not Much Further. It's about the wait for top surgery to It's depicting holding a cast of my body and showing that kind of being on show as I walk through the landscape. And then once I get to the top of a big hill, I smash up the plaster cast with a sledgehammer to kind of just release that tension and then I kind of kick it off the cliff.
Work about my relationship to the space and my experience of the landscape and the magic in the landscape as well. So this is about the lavender and the wind breeze that grow on the stiper stones, which is such a magical place anyway.
This is called Two Avons, Boat and Body. And it's a piece of work that's evolved out of a research project that I'm running called Queer River. The two Avons are the Bristol Avon and the Salisbury Avon. So essentially this represents 2 walks, although layered into the documentation of the walks is other drawings and other experiences of other wetlands and other places as well.
For me, it's about presenting different aspects of the trees that I'm looking at in my project. It isn't just kind of the view that most people look at. in like terms of the queerness of oak, it has a split in the middle of the tree, which you can see as soon as you come over a hill, and that's the kind of viewpoint that people look at. And so I've actually gone behind the tree and I'm looking at it in a different way, and I'm hoping that the way that I've contextualised these images, including the sort of plant's perspective of itself, comes through in that.
The queer voice is perhaps a hidden one if you look at rural history, and this is an opportunity to uncover what people think about being LGBT and living in rural places.
Often with queer exhibitions, not inside of a museum, you find that people go there that are already interested in queer themes and topics. This museum is like for everyone, and people that go and are interested in the countryside can now also come here and be like, oh, there's queerness in the countryside, there are queer people.
A lot of people who come from rural areas but are queer end up going to urban spaces because they feel like that's where they will be heard, that's where their community is, that's where they can be themselves. And then maybe a period of reflection happens where they return back to their rural upbringing. There are different types of experiencing queerness and non-normative sexuality and gender, and it doesn't have to be within urban spaces. It can exist in more rural spaces, which for a lot of people are also contextualised by being quite violent or oppressive or conservative and heteronormative. So to have an exhibition that looks at how those two things can actually be blended together and coexist, I think it's really important and really exciting.
At this time of climate breakdown, biodiversity loss, it's really important that we listen to all voices and all perspectives, because obviously the way that we have been relating to the rest of nature doesn't work.
It's also important for people to remember their connection to the knowledge that we hold in our bodies, or knowledge that we can share and like learn from plants and animals and rocks and the soil and stuff like that.
Now that we're kind of coming through the other end of the pandemic, it's great to be able to come here and meet the other artists involved in the exhibition and the personality to the objects that are being displayed.
I really enjoyed being here because it's the first time that I was like in the space with so many other queer rural people like me, and I feel like growing up there was always being in the countryside where there was not much queerness and too queer for the countryside, but then moving to London and being too much of a countryside person to be in London, and I wasn't really aware of how many other people there were like that, so it was really nice to see everyone's different experiences and be together in a room.
What I've been able to see through working with all of these various artists with like different experiences and like geographic contexts as well is how multifaceted the countryside can be, and also the way that all of these different perspectives come together in a way that doesn't have to be competitive. It's this kind of beautiful mixing of diversity in the countryside. Yeah, it's really opened my mind to not having to define what rural life is all the time.
You don't have to have a queer collection in your museum. You can have a queer look on things, on like everything, and you will find queer themes in all kinds of objects if you just look for it.
So we were originally built just to run for a month, but the museum has pointed to expanding it until September. So if people haven't already seen it, there's still a chance to engage with all of the beautiful artworks that we have on show.